So after leaving the Flaming Gorge in northern Utah, I returned to Colorado in a place that I'd been trying to find the perfect spot. Well, I know where the perfect spot is. It's just been occupied. And I'm on my way up the dirt road, the switchbacks to the backside, or maybe the front side of Grand Mesa. And if you remember, I camped on Grand Mesa a few weeks back with my friend Tim, and I was up here hoping to meet my new friend Eben at a new campsite, but I was undetermined whether this thing was available. But lucky for me, I ran into a couple of guys that were camped up there, two brothers, and they'd been camped up there a few days, and it turned out they welcomed me into their campsite. They told me where another campsite was. I couldn't get to it on my motorcycle, my street bike, so I wound up camping there overnight with them before they moved out the next day. 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm at Land's End. The fellows that I shared this campsite with last night have moved on, and I have it all to myself. For a few hours anyway. My new friend Eben from North Carolina should be here sometime this afternoon, hopefully. I have constructed a wall with my tarp to keep that wind off, because apparently the wind spills off the mesa into the valley, and it's kind of brutal. It's 20-30 knot winds. And my plan is to slow it down at least. Make a little wall with my tarp there as best I can. We'll see how that works. And I just made myself some hot, strong Earl Grey. And I'm sitting here editing in what I consider one of the top 10 campsites of all time. And the reason this is in the top 10 is that it's the only one up here. There's another one with a couple of young ladies at the end of the road, but it's not near as nice. It has some tiny little trees, so you can't tie a hammock to it. The view is not near as good. It's just the wall, so like I can see Grand Junction there, and I can see Moab, the mountains, the La Salle's over there. Just on the other side of those mountains is Moab, and I can see the San Juans down here, and basically almost to the Cortez area, Four Corners almost, and that's over there. But it's a beautiful day. It's still a little bit hazy. There's some smoke lingering in the air, obviously, but it's going to be a fantastic day. I've got my solar panels up right there. I've got my battery pack charging. I've got my laptop charging. I'm uploading a video actually right now, and I've got really good internet. My router is sitting over there on top of that green bag, and I'm just sitting here drinking my Earl Grey. It doesn't get much better than this. Well, who knows what's in store. I hope tonight's not as brutal as last night. I'm going to have to run into town and get some supplies, because all I have is a little bit of water, a little bit of cheese, and quite a few almonds left. So I got to get some groceries and some water. Maybe take a bath. While waiting on my new friend Eben to show up, the guy pulls up in a pickup truck and starts describing how he had been hired to retrieve the drone that the two brothers had told me went missing the day before. They told me a story of a guy that came out there and was flying his drone around, and apparently it got blown into the trees. Next thing I know, the story turns out to be true, and this guy shows up. They promised him $200 to retrieve this drone off the side of the mountain, which is a pretty interesting story in itself. I was planning on having my camera in my hand when you rolled up, and I just
I was planning on giving you some warning. But then I saw all these awesome sights coming around here. This is a real treat.
Yeah, this is nice, huh?
It's like the Disneyland park of long range Ansel Adams photo opportunities.
Yeah, yeah.
This stuff is.
Yeah, it just kind of never stops. It's a little bit overwhelming. Hey, man. Good to see you, man.
You're
Glad
tall.
you finally made it.
Yeah, so, yep, just made it. It's got a new back tire and a new chain and
All right.
yeah, not much else going on.
Not only did I get to hang out with my new friend Eben, who rode his motorcycle all the way from the East Coast to hang out with me and ride, but I also got to hang out with Lori, a girl that I'd met a few weeks earlier at the Arizona rally, the Vagabond Motorcycle Rally. And she just lived right down the hill, just a few miles down the hill, so it was pretty convenient. But not only did she come hang out with us and camp one night, she also brought us beer and food and took us on a tour of this amazing place known as Land's End. It's actually where we're camping.
Write my mother, tell her I loved her.
How many times have you been down here?
This will be my fourth.
Okay.
Here, give me your beer. We'll get a...
Just hang on.
Here, I'll hold the beer. I'll hold the beer. You go down there and get the shot.
No, you have to go down there.
All right.
Ah!
Ah! Ah! Ah! I'm freaking out. There she goes, walking to her death. One more time.
I've been searching 6 months for a wild American. And there it is. A wild American.
After wandering around the cliff face and the 10,000-foot mesa that is Land's End, our tour guide loaded us up, took us back past camp and down the switchbacks on a dirt road that I came up the other day, and showed us a water source that was coming out of the side of the mesa. Much easier access to water, and she says it was actually cleaner, but I don't know. There's so much cattle up here, I would think that everything needs to be filtered. But who am I to say? We drank the water. Most of the time I filtered my water or boiled it, but it was certainly worth a trip down the switchbacks. coming out of the pasture, so
No, I think
I mean, how are your bowels? Because mine are a little shaky.
it's filtered through everything.
Yeah, oh, it's filtered.
They were shaky since.
It's one of those filters that takes Giardia and.
I'm sure it's run a long way before it gets to you.
Sure. And you're not going to hesitate drinking that water, are you?
I'm gonna put my mouth over it. Is that bad?
Bring it down here and let's see what color it is. And but not so much you, because you live here. You understand. You come up the mountain, it gets cooler really quick. The next day, we were even treated to a couple of paragliders that came up and launched off the side of the mesa and flew down into the valley and came back up. Apparently, it's a good place to take your paragliders. I'm guessing because of all that wind that comes up from the valley floor and keeps you aloft. I think they may have been able to do a little bit better had there been a better breeze, but I think they still had a good time. I had a good time in watching them, and even though they didn't stay up above the mesa that long. It was pretty interesting to see paragliders that close to you, and they probably would have gotten even closer had they had better wind. But we soon packed up and headed down into the valley and through Grand Junction before the cold weather snowed us in on top of the mesa. On to Moab. This was Eben's first trip down the switchbacks that rolled us down into the valley below the mesa. It was actually my first trip down them, even though I'd come up the very same switchbacks a few days earlier. We had to stop and let Eben refill his water bottles with the water that came out of the side of the mountain. Once he filled the bottles, I put my machine in neutral and coasted all the way down, almost all the way down to the bottom of the hill, which I love to do. It's a lot of fun carrying enough energy through the curves to get all the way to the bottom. And this was particularly difficult given the terrain and the loose gravel in the corners, but it was still a lot of fun.